Well, I'm a strong believer in old-fashioned equality feminism. The idea that women deserve the same opportunities and legal rights as men. And this is a tradition. The first wave of feminism grew out of the European Enlightenment and philosophers and thinkers of Mary Wollstonecraft and John Stuart Mill. And it led to revisions in the law, reforms of various kinds, changes in attitudes, until women were seen as fully capable, independent moral agents equal to a man. That's equality feminism. And it's been, to my eyes, a great American success story. I do think American women liberated themselves, and with the help of many men, I would say. Many men. Equality feminism evolved in the United States, and when the real strides for and advancements for women came pretty early. I mean, in the women's movement, in the second wave of the women's movement in the 70s, with passing of laws and just getting rid of arbitrary barriers and rules that, a woman could be fired from a job if she was pregnant, and you couldn't have elite academies where women weren't allowed. You had to open them up to women, that sort of thing. Couldn't have medical schools where women couldn't attend. Ridiculous. But we changed. There's another style of feminism which did not grow out of the European Enlightenment and in the classical liberal thinking. It came out of Marxism and some of the radical theories that followed, and it views women as a class, an oppressed class, and thinks that nothing short of kind of revolutionary, completely overturning the society, will liberate women. And it's rather hostile to liberal feminism, the feminism I espouse. They don't like it. They say it's just a tinkering around and not addressing the deeper issues. Well, I don't agree with that. I don't think they've made that case. And however, that style of feminism, I call the feminism that I like equality feminism, but I call this gender feminism because they believe there's a sex-gender system and that we are all trapped inside this system, and that our destiny is decided. You're a man, you're a woman, you're captive to this oppressive, relentless system that subjects women to every kind of misfortune. I think this theory is twisted, and it rests on a lot of false statistics that exaggerate women's vulnerability and completely ignore the vulnerabilities of men. I don't think they made the case. I think there's just a lot there that doesn't sustain logical analysis. However, they did not go through the process of logical analysis when they started the women's studies departments. That rather radical theory just became the dominant ideology of women's studies and in most of the major feminist groups. So the moderate feminism that actually liberated women and could still liberate it and needs to liberate women around the globe who haven't had two major waves of feminism, that's kind of forgotten. And now we have this more strident movement that is suspicious and angry with men, to use them, the world kind of, as you said, this kind of zero-sum game, and believes nothing short of some kind of total revolution where we overthrow all patriarchal systems. And that turns out to be everything. We've got to overthrow, the entire, tradition of my field, philosophy. They say, well, it was mostly written by men. Well, that's true. And now that's going to change. And there are some great women philosophers. But historically, it's true that for complicated reasons, having to do with many societies, yes, being patriarchal, women did not have the education or the opportunity. But that doesn't mean you don't read the great philosophers, because I think young women today want to benefit from reading what the greatest thinkers, transcendently brilliant thinkers of human history, what they had to say. But in women's studies, you could often find they cultivate an attitude of contempt for the great writers and thinkers who happen to be men because they are enthralled to this theory. So that theory, when they started talking this way and writing their books about patriarchal oppression, they weren't, this was a tiny area in the university. And most people didn't even know about it because they were writing for their own journals. The leading journals and fields just didn't accept their papers. Of course, they thought that was patriarchal and so forth. And so this field developed and it took over. And so this sort of radical feminist theory and intersectional feminism and so forth, all of that is now dominant in gender studies. And increasingly, it's taught in other departments. It used to be you would have people that had a degree in history. They learned the methodology of history, and they would study, women in history, but they would do it as traditional historians. Whereas a feminist historian would do it through the prism of sex-gender theory, where they saw systemic, everything was oppression. They looked at it through the prism of this theory, but the theory was never tested except within this little insular community of like-minded people. However, a lot of liberal professors thought that they should have an intellectually diverse department, so they would hire people, or they would build a women's studies department. Those radicals did not feel the need to invite people in with different views. So feminism on the campus is a one-party system. Dissidents are not invited. If you are a moderate feminist, or you could even be an anti-feminist, you're not invited. They don't want to hear what you have to say, and you will be thought to be, just an apologist for the status quo. But they haven't haven't made the case for their radical model that we have to tear down the patriarchy. As a liberal feminist, I think, no, we have to improve society. We have to look for places where there's unfairness or some kind of burdens placed on women unfairly. They can't succeed. But as a moderate feminist, I would think a big burden that's on women right now is the difficulty young people have in forming marriages and having families and having children. This has all become very difficult, but you wouldn't know it in a gender studies department because they're not looking at that problem. They're not looking at women's isolation and the childlessness for people who want children. That's a terrible thing. But one of the things that's true is it becomes harder as you get older to have children. And for most people who have them, it's the greatest thing in their life. They're very, not for everyone, but for the majority, it's a source of meaning and happiness in your life. But a lot of people aren't going to have that. And why can't that be a women's issue? You'll never find it on anybody's agenda. So I think it's too bad that gender studies ended up being a one-party system. But I think now it's moved out into the society. So the major women's groups, and now even in Hollywood movies and things, they all seem to be, this is what they think feminism is.
The thing that's so strange to me about this ideology that's taken shape and the way actually the Hollywood movies are kind of a perfect example of the strangeness of this. It seems to be a vision of female empowerment that is to not embrace being female at all. Which and what I mean by that is the lazy Hollywood version is, oh, Superman, let's have Superwoman. But it's the same story. It's the same kind of fighting. Oh, let's just do a race and gender swap. There was the South Park, the character Cartman was playing Kathleen. I forget what name of the executive, and that's the Star Wars executive at Disney. And and it's basically making fun. Like the only thing they're doing in the Star Wars now is like taking whoever the hero character is and saying, put a chick in it and make her lame and gay. That was the joke. but the joke stings because it is what television looks like now. There's a new Star Wars show out right now called The Acolyte, and that's the whole thing. Like, who's the most powerful force? It's a bunch of lesbian witches in space. That's the new Star Wars.
That's God.
Like, literally, that's a description.
I know. But you know what? I bet those young women, the majority of young women who go through college don't become angry gender feminists, but some do, especially the majors. And this is very strong. The more elite the university, the more likely they have a lot of very eccentric, sort of hardline gender warriors. And a fair number of young women, again, not the majority, but maybe let's say 10%, 20%, believe this. And they want to carry that idea that, it's a battle and, they're on team Venus and we're going to win in this battle. And it's such a strange way to see the world. It's so wrong. But you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, I wrote Who Stole Feminism 94. I was researching it, in the late 80s. This is a long time ago. And I thought, well, I'll tell people these problems. And then wrote about the boys many years ago. And it's taken longer than I thought.
If you like this clip, you should check out the full video and all the other great content we've got at Dad Saves America. So be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss our new stuff as it drops each week.